I could feel very high.
It's a new day on the Enterprise, and T'Pol's receiving a phone call. The lass on the other end says they found someone called Manos near her current location, and the news is clearly important based on her stopping by to see Archer during breakfast. She tells him she was called by Vulcan High Command on a security matter, but provides no further details. She also tells him to expect a call himself from Admiral Forrest Kelly, one that'll order the Enterprise to a certain place where T'Pol is to be given a shuttle and someone to fly it for a few days. Archer's curiosity is met with stonewalling from T'Pol, so he gives up and tells her to bugger off. The call from Admiral Forrest Kelly comes, so off we go to the Panea system. Archer might not like it, but orders are orders, and he tells everybody will be sitting around for a few days, so they should find something useful to do, except Travis, who'll be piloting the shuttle. He's in his quarters later when T'Pol visits again. He's still pissed off about being given yet another Vulcan errand with no explanation, an attitude that evaporates when it becomes clear T'Pol's going to spill the beans. In short, she worked for Vulcan security before her current job of doing a science, and that involved bringing back people who weren't always fully on board with the idea. This was especially true of a group of Vulcan infiltrators planted on a world to help stamp out crime there. More specifically, it was true of a small portion of that group who decided they weren't coming back once the business was concluded. T'Pol was sent to capture 6 members of this group and succeeded in nabbing 5 of the buggers. We're here now because number 6 has just popped up again, and she's telling Archer because she wants him to tag along. Learning she'd rather have him as backup than anyone from the Vulcan ship on its way to rendezvous with us is enough to convince him. Tucker's curious about the change of plans and argues he has a good reason to know when he's being left in charge, but Archer refuses to share anything beyond calling it unfinished business, then buggers off with T'Pol and Travis. Manos isn't your average Vulcan, and not least of which because he's been cosmetically altered. Rumour has it he took a liking to the smuggler lifestyle he was sent to infiltrate. More specifically, rumour has it he took a liking to the shit ton of cash it provided, which is to be expected when he was smuggling toxins for weapons. T'Pol eventually tracked him down on Riser, though says they instead of he at one point. Archer picks up on it, but she's not ready to share whatever that part of it is, and after a little flashback of running, only says he disappeared afterwards. The place we land is a bit on the chilly side, which might explain why everybody's in the pub getting wankered. T'Pol confirms our target's in there with a quick scan, but whatever we were planning immediately goes pear-shaped when T'Pol is spotted, and gets even worse when the pooping starts. Starfleet's pretty good at getting wins it hasn't really earned, though, which is how Travis manages to nab the bugger. The manacles go on, and out we all go. Back on the Enterprise, Tucker's learning that being in charge is more complicated than simply getting to use the captain's dining room. Everybody has questions they want answers to, and the Vulcan ship we're due to rendezvous with wants to talk to Archer about a message from Admiral Forrest Kelly. To the surface once more, where we're being told we can't get to our shuttle. The landing platform has acid on it to melt the ice, a process that'll take 4 hours. We might as well wait in the pub then. Archer's worried he might have associates, but T'Pol says he works alone. A comment from Manos saying that wasn't always the case sparks more flashbacks for T'Pol. Then he moves on to saying this whole thing is bollocks. He was an infiltrator, sure, but he's not a smuggler. He just didn't want to go back home and face another batch of reprogramming from his bosses. Instead, he says he started a family and supports them hauling used warp engine parts, a job not known for being particularly healthy. The damage is already done, and he has no intention of ending his days in a Vulcan prison, or of being shot, either. That last comment confuses Archer, but T'Pol's in flashback land again. She's chasing 2 lads this time, and it's mixed in with what looks like monks. Whatever the flashback was, she's had enough of his shit and pulls a blade. Not to shank him, it seems, but rather to slice up his clothes. A couple of his belts wrapped around her shoes is enough to resist acid, she thinks, which... Yeah, all right then, sure. Maybe they're special spy belts issued by Vulcan MI6 or some shit. Regardless, she wants to see what his ship is really carrying, and when opening crates, finds only the used warp gubbins he told us about. She's also having more flashbacks about chasing Manos and another lad, one called Josson, according to Manos shouting his name when he falls. It's all a bit much for T'Pol, and she slowly sinks to the floor. Tucker's decided to act like a real Starfleet captain, which is a diplomatic way of saying he's going to lie through his teeth. Our Vulcan rendezvous doesn't know Archer by sight, so Tucker simply pretends to be him. Not that it matters. The important message from Admiral Forrest Kelly was the score of a sports ball game, and possibly to let the Vulcans know how it feels to be given a job without an explanation. To the pub once more, where T'Pol's returning from Manos' ship. Archer and Travis make themselves scarce when she asks to be left alone with Manos. She wants to know who Jocelyn is, and she's rather insistent about it. Jocelyn, according to Manos, was another infiltrator who didn't fancy going home. They were on Riser together, at least until T'Pol shot the bastard. That causes a flashback of the guy going for a weapon and T'Pol making him do a dead, all of which is very confusing for T'Pol, as offing someone is the kind of thing you'd remember, and Manos thinks this is because the act of murder has fucked up her brain. She goes outside for a chat with Archer while Travis watches Manos. She's sure there were 7 people she was sent to retrieve now rather than 6, and is convinced these flashbacks are real memories. More than that, she thinks those memories were deliberately repressed. The whole business on Riser bothered her enough to resign from the Ministry of Security and visit Pajem, the religious retreat that's now a smoking crater. The plan was to deal with her guilt about offing someone, only that didn't work, so they just papered over the memory instead. Taking this job weakened the block, which T'Pol says is why she wanted Archer here with her. He's not sold on Manos being innocent, but that'll have to wait as the pub appears to be a little bit on fire. Manos kicked over the table and the open flame sitting on it because he'd rather die here than in prison. T'Pol's not having that and unlocks him, which gives him the chance to scarp her when part of the building collapses. Archer's still got his eyes on the prize at least, and we go to Manos' ship while everybody else flies away. We'll assume the danger of the floor acid has been superseded by the fire. T'Pol's arguing that Manos is already gone after we make an initial search, though Archer thinks there's more to her giving up than simple logic. He's on the money too, as T'Pol's now not sure if the guy she knocked off all those years ago was guilty, regardless of whether he was reaching for a weapon. Archer says she's emotionally compromised, something that may have been deliberately exacerbated by Manos, but that'll have to wait. Travis calls from the cockpit to say there's something weird, namely a lot of power going to an unidentified system. Archer takes the Starfleet approach of finding out what by simply turning it off, so it's lucky the gizmo was only a holographic illusion. What's unlucky is that Manos was hiding in it, and turning it off leaves him pointing a weapon at T'Pol. He was just going to wait until we left, he says, and is terribly apologetic about taking her hostage when Archer and Travis come back. Manos wants Archer and Travis to trap themselves in a closet. They comply until T'Pol's sent to lock it, then they jump back out again and start pooping. Manos decides it's time to surrender, except no he doesn't, because he's just buying time to jump out of a hatch in the floor. T'Pol follows and points her gun, only for Manos to bet she won't fire. Archer, who has apparently decided to not bother using his own weapon, convinces T'Pol to trust him and shoot the bastard, so she does. Manos is a filthy weapon-smuggling bastard. The reason he gave up is because we were shooting near the containers in his hidden hold, the ones filled with the toxins he said he didn't have. Handing him over to the Vulcan rendezvous goes fine, and we're soon back on the Enterprise. Tucker's told to piss off when he starts asking questions, then T'Pol visits Archer. She's still processing everything but declines some time off, so we'll leave her to work through it all as we get ready to take another step on the long road. A T'Pol background story then, and we learn some very interesting things in the process, not least of which that people who like open flames probably shouldn't build their pubs out of fucking firelighters. Seriously though, that place went up like bloody kindling. Must have been designed by the same guy who makes Starship Bridge consoles out of explodium. Anywho, the main nugget from today's story is that T'Pol is anything but your standard science officer. We could have guessed this from her being chosen for placement on a controversial exploration mission, and she basically came out and said it herself last season when telling us that she was there to protect Vulcan interests in addition to observing, but this is as close as we've come to a tacit confirmation that she was chosen for reasons other than her scientific skills. And there may be a hint that she was considered above average in this former career as well. There were 19 members of the Infiltration team who decided they weren't coming back if T'Pol's count is accurate. T'Pol says she was assigned 6, but we later learned that was 7 after the collapse of her memory block, so either somebody else got lumped with catching 12 people on their own, which doesn't seem particularly likely, or there were at least 3 members in this recovery team. If T'Pol was given an above-average quantity of targets, that's an indication of higher confidence in her skills. Vulcans don't strike me as people who decide where the extra gets assigned by tossing a coin. That's not the only implication we're given by this episode, though. For one, her being contacted to perform this mission, despite later learning she'd resigned, suggests her membership of this Ministry of Security never actually ceased. Perhaps, just like the Obsidian Order, it's not an organization from which anybody ever actually retires, and yes, that comparison is deliberate. Given the nature of the jobs T'Pol mentions, it's pretty clear we're talking about an intelligence agency rather than the Vulcan Popo. And that ties into the stuff we've heard before about T'Pol being viewed by many as a spy. I mentioned she'd previously admitted she was there to represent Vulcan interests, at least in part. This new data shows they gave us someone who was literally trained in spycraft, meaning Tucker was right on the nose over a year ago. And that perhaps gives us an insight into just how concerned the Vulcan High Command was about we humans fucking up the normal state of affairs. We didn't just get an observer, we got a spy. And we didn't just get a spy, we got one they held in above-average regard. Then again, based on the problems we've caused for the Vulcans, or dirty laundry we've uncovered to be more precise, maybe that caution was entirely warranted. And that segues nicely into a chat about P'Jem. Some viewers might balk at the idea of T'Pol visiting P'Jem just being casually tossed out when there was no mention of recognition when we went there before, but I'd argue it checks out. Her having no memory is explained away fully in this episode, and the monks there saying nothing ties into what we already knew. This is hardly the first connection between P'Jem and an intelligence agency, is it? The whole place had a bloody great big listening post underneath, and we know the monks were aware of what was happening because one of them threatened Archer when it was found. So using the monastery as a place to fix the brainial meats of disturbed agents actually ties in quite nicely to them being complicit, and explains why everybody kept their mouths shut about recognizing T'Pol. That's not to say the memory block plot point is entirely without other problems, by the way. The episode tells us that T'Pol had certain memories of Risa repressed, which is all well and good, but this is the event that led to her resigning from her job, so how does that work? Once the block was gone, she remembered resigning as a direct result of offing Jocelyn, so what did she think had happened before that memory returned? It's not like waking up one day to discover you're no longer in the same career wouldn't make her ask questions. The real reason simply doesn't work without the memories she blocked. And creating a new excuse to explain it would require the fabrication of additional memories. Saying she chose to leave after the failure to capture Manos, or that she was removed because of it, would need something to back that up. There's nothing in the story to indicate additions, only subtractions, which leaves a rather large question mark over just what it could have been that she believed. There's a second problem with the memory block business as well. If the Ministry of Security was aware of her suppressed memories and the possibility of that block becoming unstable, why would they have assigned her to capture Manos in the first place? You could argue that risking her breakdown was a deliberate choice, I guess, a punishment by those in power for supporting Archer and the Enterprise crew over the Vulcan High Command at the start of the season, but that all seems a little far-fetched. It also jeopardizes the capture of Manos, which is clearly something sufficiently important that they've been trying to track him for nearly 2 decades. The idea of tossing all that away for petty revenge just doesn't work for me. Let's move away from the negativity, though, as we've still got some more positives. In addition to all the stuff mentioned above about T'Pol's past, we also get a bit more dirty laundry for the Vulcans. Undercover agents buggering off to join a life of crime? How delightfully scandalous. And what about the behavior of one of those rebels? When telling his story, Manos smiles and laughs a couple of times. Was that simply his cover, the mannerisms he needed to adopt to stay hidden? Could it be a deliberate attempt to sway us, affectations with the intent of appealing to the humans in his jury? Could it even be genuine emotion to show how far he strayed from the Vulcan norm? His behaviour isn't addressed in the story, and I think it's one of those situations where the question is better than the potential answers. And that's your lot. We can pick holes in the underlying logic on a few points, but that doesn't do much to dull what was, for me at least, an above-average episode. Character background and dubious ethics are always plus points for me, so my conclusion shouldn't be that much of a surprise to any of you. I can see why defenders of Vulcan honour might not like it, but as I've said a few times before, if you want your Vulcans to be paragons, you already have 4 other Star Trek series that you can go and watch instead. For the rest of us, this gives us another glimpse into the faults and flaws that the Vulcans will largely outgrow. End of episode.
Hey, thank God that's over.
No thanks to you.
What's that supposed to mean?
Did you have to eat the fairies?
I thought they were flies. You can't have something buzzing round me face and expect it to end well. I got thousands of years of evolution telling me to chase the bugger. Tasty, though.
Sigh. At least we got the crystals.
Yeah, at least we... You what?
The crystals. From the dark world. For the translator. To talk to Porthos.
Oh, right. Yeah, the crystals from Dungeons. Gotcha. Those very important crystals.
You didn't pick them up, did you?
No, I didn't. Woof.